What's up, guys? Welcome back to the podcast. Hey, it's your boy Sean, aka Big Tasty, and today we're talking about boundaries. We're talking about how to set healthy boundaries. So before we get into today's podcast slash video, that's right, if you guys are listening to us on Spotify or on iTunes, give your boy a nice little subscribe or rate and review. Give us 5 stars, and thank you so much for listening, because this goes out and helps everybody. And if you're watching on YouTube, do remember to hit that subscribe button and click that notification bell, ding, so that you guys know when all the episodes drop. So without further ado, welcome to the podcast, and let's talk about healthy boundaries. Okay! So today we want to talk about healthy boundaries, right? So boundaries are set because, number one, you love yourself and you value yourself. Now, I have gone on for many years without healthy boundaries, right? I knew about them. I know people, it's a big word to use in a therapy circle, especially in the mental health circle, and people throw the word boundary around a lot. And if you look on like YouTube and you look at all the other podcasts where they talk about boundaries, we all know how important boundaries are, but we don't really know how to set healthy ones, right? So today we want to make this podcast a little practical for us as well. So the more clearer you are about your boundaries, the less of a people pleaser you become. And now, growing up, right, I am like the ultimate people pleaser, and that's the thing I'm dealing with in therapy as well, because people pleasing has always been a little reflection on how you are as a person, and a little bit about how your upbringing is. So growing up, I was never, one for attention, because my parents were always working. I mean, don't get me wrong, they loved me, but they were very hardworking, and our financial situation just didn't allow them to be at home and spend time with me all the time. So growing up, I always wanted attention from everywhere, every circle that I was in, whether I was in school, whether I was in CCA, whether I had the various groups of friends. So I always had to be, naturally the class clown. Always wanted to make people laugh. Always wanted to have that first quick remark, that quick in, because I needed that attention, right? And I always wanted to be a people pleaser, and I couldn't deal with people not liking me, right? And for whatever reason, I remember so vividly, I was on this project once, right? And I was working with a group of people, and I remember having an interaction with one of them, to nobody's fault. I mean, we just didn't, connect, or we just didn't vibe well with each other. He's a great person, I am me. And it's just like one of those things where we didn't vibe, and our boundaries were clearly crossed, and I know he didn't like me, right? And he didn't like me, and I found it so personable, and I took it so personally that it became so weird, because I'm like, I just needed him to like me so much. And I mean, of course, this was a time where I understood a little bit about mental health, so I had to put into practice what I learned about boundaries. But I realized, I caught myself trying to people please a bit, right? And it just became this epic thing. So this makes us, right, when we fall into the trap of people pleasing, this makes us a slave to other people's standards. And not that it's a bad thing, it's just that you become someone who doesn't like, for example, if I don't like to stay out and my friends are gonna stay out, and if I don't want to get that one last drink and everybody wants to like, hey, one last drink, I fall into people's standards, and I don't uphold standards of my own. And I just end up failing myself. It's not necessarily something bad. Sometimes an hour later or one drink later is okay sometimes, but you just, the question you have to ask yourself is, who is in control, right? Who is in control of this life, of your standards, of what you value? All right, we are all conditioned, by our parents or by society, to put other people's needs first. And that's why a lot of us, we work so hard for someone else's company. We feel like we are the reflection of the company that we work for a paycheck, just because that's how society and how growing up in this generation is, right? Because your boss, the guy that runs the company, is not going to pay you as much as he's getting paid. You're not going to be able to afford to stay next to him in his house, or like somewhere wherever he stays, right? You're not going to be able to drive the kind of car that he drives because of the amount that you pay. But why do you work so hard for someone else? Right? If you are working so hard for someone, I mean, I get that you take pride and joy in your work. I get that you love your company, maybe, or you love the product that you sell, or you are totally into it, and that's great. That's work ethic, and that's beautiful. But if you're gonna put in so much work for somebody else, why don't you put in that much effort in yourself? Right? So that's kind of like where we want to head, and that's something I'm trying to put into practice every single day of my life as well. So boundaries are your standards, and it is how you want to be treated by other people. And I know a lot of people, like I said before, boundaries are like this fun little word that we throw around, right? But you want to be able to set clear boundaries that are not too high, because you don't owe everybody a living and people don't owe you a living, but you want to value certain things in your life. For example, if you value your time, if you feel like, okay, my time is precious, I'm a planner, I need to know this and this and this, and my life is systematically that way, then you can't stand it, you won't stand it when every time you want to meet your friends, they're always late, fashionably late, and for good reason. Not one of those like, okay, I'll be there 10-15 minutes late, but like those like, I am always late, I'm a latecomer, and that's me. Then these people don't respect your time, and you feel like, hey, you don't add value to my life that way, right? So you become mindful of that fact. And of course, when you enter communication with people, it always takes communication to communicate your boundaries. You cannot just, okay, these are my boundaries, and you just keep quiet to yourself and you expect everybody else to know your boundaries. Cannot, right? So you need to communicate your boundaries effectively and relentlessly with people with all the love in the world. Setting boundaries is not a fight. You don't have to be emotional about it, but you have to be mindful. And you remember, you can't get angry if somebody crosses your boundaries, where if you haven't communicated that boundary to that person. Alright, so you can't get angry for something you never communicated with. Alright, so I'm gonna give you 3 tips first and foremost about boundaries. Number 1, you gotta say it early. Okay, not just drop hints, not just drop it here and there, especially in relationships, right? Don't just drop hints, but direct communication is key. This is important to set boundaries for you and for me. Alright, number 2, set boundaries that help the relationship and not just you. Alright, sometimes if you are working on boundaries with yourself, go ahead, do that boundary thing by yourself. But if you're setting boundaries with a partner, then you guys have to talk about relationships. You guys have to talk about the boundaries individually and boundaries together as well. Yeah, and that goes on to, and we're gonna go into detail a little bit more and make things a little bit practical for you as well. And when you do this communicative engagement with your partner, you gotta remember to leave your ego at the door, right? Remember to leave your ego at the door. Tip number 3, you gotta know where you've been to be able to get where you wanna be. So you gotta do the homework, baby. You gotta do the homework. You gotta do your work on yourself. You gotta sit down, you gotta ask yourself, what are some boundaries that you really, really want? So, if you're used to relationships a certain way, maybe you have had exes in the past that treated you a certain way, or you treat them a certain way, and now you're with someone new. Things change, people are different. You can't expect to do the same thing over and over again and expect different results, right? So you gotta communicate, you gotta grow, you gotta leave your ego at the door, you gotta know where you've been in order to know where you wanna go, right? Alright, so whether you've always struggled to communicate healthy boundaries, or you just realized that you simply kind of jumped into a new relationship, here are 5 easy ways to get back on track with healthy boundaries. Alright, number 1, you have to know your true value. When we establish our worth and we have a deep-centered belief around our true identity, then it becomes easier to communicate it and not let anyone walk over you. And this is something I'm trying to put into practice every single day of my life. So I have like notes around that I leave back there and stuff like that to remind me that, okay, this is what I value, this is what I care about, and this is what I want to be. Alright, and I have that come up in conversations all the time so that that I remember my true value, right? And it helps you with your sense of purpose. It helps you with your sense of worth as well, all right? And number two, you have to communicate even though it's tough. I know sometimes talking is hard, and sometimes communicating is harder, so you have to learn to talk about your feelings, right? You have to learn to talk about your feelings, especially when it is in a heightened sense, emotionally. Especially guys, we have this little more this thing where we want to be logical rather than emotional, but you can't draw a line that way. You can't just like, okay, I'm very logical, this makes sense to me this way. You have to be emotional as well, and you have to be vice versa, logical and emotional, right, guys and girls? So you have to think about it, but you have to communicate it with heart and with sensitivity and with empathy, and you have to think about other people's feelings as well as your own. Number three, you have to explain rather than express. Sometimes we're very good at expressing ourselves, expressing our emotions, letting people know what we want, but we have to explain and be able to explain why. Substantiate it with a little bit of feelings, a little bit of background, a little bit of like what can be done to make yourself feel better, or what can be done to make you go further faster as well. Yeah, number four, give consequences. All right, if you keep rewarding the lack of respect that you get with your when it comes to boundaries, let's say you have a partner that always oversteps his boundaries with you, or oversteps her boundaries with him, then they will keep doing the same action if you don't give them consequences, if you don't speak up, if you don't say, if you don't tell them, if you don't communicate effectively and relentlessly, if you don't give consequences for negative behavior, then that behavior will continue to persist, right? Number five is to stay accountable. Check in every once in a while, right? Do an emotional check-in every once in a while. Every week, if you have to, sit down, look them in the eye and say, hey, how you doing? And it's easy to lose perspective or to justify toxic behavior sometimes, especially when we're tired, we have things on our plates, and so we have to stay accountable and checking with each another. So let's get down to the practical part about how to create healthy boundaries, especially in relationships as well, right? So like I said, you got to know things about yourself. So what I like to use is I like to use the 5 senses, all right? So use your 5 senses and this will help you. So your 5 senses are very easy: your sight, your hearing, your taste, your smell, and your touch, all right? So let's jumble this up a little bit and try to break them down and see what kind of boundaries we can use to help develop our senses, right? So sight, vision is important, all right? You guys have to see the qualities, the good qualities and the bad qualities as well. So for example, personally in my life, what is a great boundary for me vision wise with my partner is that I need a partner someone that can see my good qualities, but someone that can also point out my bad qualities as well. Someone that can see that, hey, you speak a lot about being a certain way, but you are not acting that way right now. So is this a boundary that you set for yourself? Maybe it's something you want to work on, right? So my partner helps me, she corrects me, she coaches me, she points out what I need to work on, especially, yeah. Hearing, because you want to share appreciation with each other, a willingness to work and understand, not to kind of jump to the worst case scenarios all the time, but yeah, something that will give you a little bit more of like a positive reinforcement, someone that would tell you things when you need to hear it, also good things and bad things as well, because sometimes you can't just get all the good things in life, you need to get some of the corrective things, the coaching moments, right? Self-help. I always say, don't cancel people, but coach people, right? So you don't want to cancel your partner, you want to coach them as well. Coach until cannot coach already lah, then you have to cancel, right? Touch is very important. Intimacy, yeah. So I'm a very intimate kind of person. I'm a PDA kind of person. I like, not say PDA lah, but I like to explore each other, especially when it comes to a physical relationship. I like hugs, I like holding hands, I like kisses. I like to display a little bit of affection because I'm a physical kind of guy, right? So touch is important, right? And then you have your sight, you have your hearing, you have your touch, you have your taste. So taste is kind of like when not just licking each other, but also something that you have to do with your mouth when you speak love and you speak edification, when you speak good things into each other's life, and that's very, very important as well. So that's a boundary that I want to set in myself. I will never want to be someone that verbally abuses their partner, or verbally abuses myself, or speaks ill of my partner or people. You know, I always want to be respectful with my speech, so you gotta put that into your mouth as well, right? Your taste for good things, man. All right. And also time is very important, so I put that under, like, you know, your physical intimacy and touch and time, right? So spending time with people is very important. If you are a planner like me, if you look at my schedule, it's packed out day to day and I have everything planned. So sometimes I value people who value my time as well. So put that into consideration when you are planning your boundaries, right? So time, touch, taste, your hearing, your smell is very important. That's the intimacy things as well. And also intellectually, right? So like, you have to respect ideas, respect concepts, respect mindsets and perspectives of your partner, and it's something that you have to sit down and clearly communicate and work through as well. So these are all, like, you know, top broad topics, and it might be different for you. So you don't want to be too high of a standard, but you don't want to be too low of a standard as well. You want to have that communication. You want to have that little you know, ongoing of like, okay, and all of this is not set in stone, right? Everything is not black and white. It's very colorful, and as you grow, as you experience new things, things will change as well, and you have that ongoing conversation as well. Yeah, you must have the ability to disagree constructively, I say. So when there's a problem, you can work on things without screaming, name calling, threats, or emotional and physical abuse. So that's the last straw, so you never want to do that as well. Yeah. And the last boundary that I'm trying to set for myself is financially as well. So something that, you know, working out on a budget, setting out a savings account, investing my money, understanding all that. So you have to get that into, you know, something that you have to think about as well. So if you're not thinking about all these things in a relationship or by yourself, then hey, you know, you got to work on yourself first. So think about all these points and try to create boundaries for yourself and say, what kind of person do you want to be? What kind of person do you want to be like in the future, right? How do you see yourself? Then when you work with your partner, you can set these boundaries as well. Yeah. So I hope you guys enjoyed today's podcast. Like I said, if you do, you know, give your boy a follow on Instagram. That's Sean_Tupas. You can also follow me on Spotify, on iTunes. If you are there, leave a little review, 5 stars, and drop a comment in this YouTube video as well. Thank you so much, and I hope to, you know, keep on giving you good content. If you guys have anything you want to slide into the DMs and let a brother know, then go ahead. Alright, party people, take care of yourself, be well, and stay strong.